You know that moment you dry your hands and feel clean? Well, you're not. You're actually dirtier than when you started. And science has proved it. Step into a public bathroom and you'll find cracked tiles, flickering lights, and that weird lemon chemical smell that's trying a little too hard to convince you it's clean. It's not fun, but hey, at least the hand dryer's fine. Wrong. Scientists tested this. They left petri dishes on the bathroom floor for 2 minutes. Almost no bacteria. Then they aimed the hand dryer at it for 30 seconds, and hundreds of bacterial colonies appeared. Now, I'm no scientist, but I'm pretty sure hundreds of bacterial colonies, it's a lot. That warm air isn't drying your hands, it's blasting a bunch of airborne germs straight onto them. And it begins. Welcome to another round of 20 random facts that I'll bet you won't have heard before. So what would you prefer? Hand dryers or paper towel? Wait, no, let's go billions of dollars or a beat up used car. Back in 1960, brothers Tom and James Monahan bought a tiny pizza shop called Dominos for just $900. But a year later, James thought, nah, these late nights, they're not for me. So he made what just might be the worst sale in history. He sold all his shares, half the business, for a rusty blue Volkswagen Beetle. That business would eventually become the global powerhouse known as Domino's Pizza. I guess it's only about $8 billion. But that's a lot of used cars. Now, that was a bad decision. We're all guilty of them, especially the government, because in the early 90s, Britain had a problem. People were throwing massive illegal raves in fields, warehouses, and really anywhere they could. The government didn't like this, so they shut them down. Their new law said music wholly or predominantly characterized by repetitive beats was banned. Enter Autechre. The British electronic music duo found a loophole. They released a track called Flutter, carefully designed so no two bars repeated the same beat. The government couldn't do anything. It was perfectly legal. It remains one of the more interesting forms of musical rebellion. And on the topic of rebellion, when they first came out, people weren't too happy with barcodes either. Imagine buying your groceries, scanning the first item, and everyone's just staring at you in shock. Well, this actually happened when barcodes first appeared. Back then, people swore those simple black and white stripes were a new secret way of tracking their movements. And the news headlines didn't help. They called them dangerous, unnatural, and a threat to humanity hiding in plain sight. Fast forward 70 years and barcodes are scanned over 5 billion times a day. Makes you think what we'll be saying about 5G in 70 or so years. Who knows? It might just rewire our brains. Might be a good thing if you've got beat deafness. Picture this, you're grooving on the dance floor, scan around the room, and realise everyone's bobbing their heads out of sync. But are you really sure they're the ones out of sync? Beat deafness is a real thing, and you might have it. I know I do. Some people can hear music just fine, but they simply can't feel rhythm. Their brains process timing differently, so no matter how hard they try, they can't clap or dance in sync. It's like their internal metronome is broken. Everyone's doing the nutbush, except them. They're doing the Macarena. And if humans can lose rhythm, I'm pretty sure AI can too. Yeah, here we go. Another AI fact. So AI systems learn by consuming huge amounts of data. No surprise. Text, images, sounds. Basically everything humans have ever put online. That's fine until they start training themselves on content made by other AIs. It's a real problem called model collapse, and it's breaking them. Each time an AI trains on what they call synthetic data, errors multiply, patterns distort, and over time it forgets what's real and what's not. Eventually, you're left with an AI learning from an AI that's learned from an AI. See the problem here? It's a bit like photocopying a photocopy. If you keep at it, all you're left with is a blur. That's not good if you're asking it how to perform surgery, especially this one. It's called the maze procedure. There's a condition out there called atrial fibrillation, where your heart beats out of sync. So what surgeons do is literally burn or freeze a maze pattern into the heart's tissue. Each line leaves behind a thin scar that blocks the faulty signals, causing the heart to flutter out of rhythm. This traps the noise and lets the normal beats pass through. And here's the crazy part. It actually works. The procedure has an 80 to 90% success rate in curing a faulty heart. But even signing up to it would be an emotional roller coaster. And emotions suck. Especially the so-called 5 stages of grief: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Everyone tells us when we lose something, we all go through it. But the truth is, these stages were never meant to define loss. Psychiatrist Elizabeth Kubler-Ross created them to describe the emotions of terminally ill patients, not the people mourning for these patients. For you and I, when we lose something, there's no clear, nicely defined stages of grief. We're just a mess. A complete mess. It's something you simply don't plan for. Unless, of course, you're NASA. I mean, they've even got an extra-terrestrial exposure contingency plan, a specific protocol they follow to avoid that nasty space contamination. It lays out what to do if astronauts ever bring home alien organisms or unknown biological material, something that could spread and potentially harm life on Earth. The plan covers containment, sterilization, and quarantine, not just for the astronauts, but for their spacecraft, their gear, and even the air around them. Not the best way to end your holiday. Returning to Earth and finding yourself locked in a sealed room with your skin turning orange. And that's another thing. The color orange wasn't always called orange. It didn't actually have a name. People used to call it yellow-red. It was only after the fruit showed up in Europe in the early 1300s that the colour finally got its name. So yes, the colour orange came from oranges. Asking for a yellow-red crayon back in the 1300s, if they even had crayons. Now, that's confusing. Thanks for sticking around. I like your style. And speaking of liking things, why not click that little button down there? Now, what's the craziest thing you know about thunderstorms? Here's one. Lightning doesn't always strike down. Sometimes it shoots up. They're called blue jets, electric bursts that shoot from the tops of storm clouds straight into the stratosphere. And the name blue jet is quite literal. They glow neon blue and stretch for up to 30 miles high. The funny thing is that no one fully understands how they form. They exist in a sort of awkward middle zone, too high for planes to study and too low for satellites to see clearly. A bit of an enigma, kind of like those fancy traders on Wall Street. And before you go investing your life savings, you might want to hear this. Over the past decade, only 10% of professional fund managers outperformed the S&P 500, America's stock market. Is it just me, or is this crazy? People spend thousands in fees, study stock charts daily, and they would have made way more money by just buying the index and leaving it alone. So no matter what they say, all that fancy talk about PE ratios and return on equity, history tells us that you're 90% more likely to make more money if you just buy the index and leave it. And if you don't like stocks, no problem. Go buy some lemonade instead. In 2018, Country Time Lemonade launched Legal-Ade. It was a fund they'd pulled together to pay fines for kids caught running lemonade stands without permits. They'd cover legal fees up to $300 per case. Now, I'm not even going to go into how ridiculous it is they fined kids for selling lemonade. What a joke. But good on Country Time Lemonade. You should buy their products. And no, I'm not sponsored. It's clear that legal fees can grow fast. And on the topic of growing fast, did you know there's a plant out there that grows so fast you could almost watch it happen in real time? That plant is bamboo. I'm talking up to 1 meter a day. You wake up, walk outside, and your garden is somehow turned into a forest overnight. And even more unsettling is the fact that you can hear the cracks and creaks of it growing. Bamboo, the plant that makes every other plant look lazy. Oh no, I've been talking way too much. I think it's time for a drink. Actually, speaking of drinks, have you ever tried pickle juice? It's the drink no one asked for, but every athlete swears by. They say it stops muscle cramps 40% faster than water. The vinegar shocks nerve receptors in your throat, basically short-circuiting the signal that tells your muscles to seize up. It's salty, it burns a bit on the way down, but it stops cramps in their tracks. Just one word of caution: if you're sitting on a park bench chugging a jar of pickle juice, you may very well get arrested. Or you just turn into some sideshow attraction. Just like that time in 1934 when a tiny farmhouse in Ontario became the talk of the world. 5 identical babies, the Dion quintuplets, were born against all odds. They were the first set of quintuplets ever to survive, so this was a big deal. Doctors called it a miracle, and miracles, it turns out, are profitable. The government built a tourist park called Quintland, and visitors would line up for hours, their faces pressed up to the glass, just to see these miracle kids playing. Yeah, I'm not sure creating a human zoo was the best idea. Actually, neither is throwing yourself into a fire to try and put it out. But that's what they did in 18th century Japan. Firefighters were built different back then. I mean, these guys would drench their heavy coats in water, charge straight into burning buildings, and use their bodies to smother the flames. Crazy. You see, fire hoses weren't really a thing yet. All they had were buckets and ladders. I think they took the fire fighting bit a bit too literal. Instead, why not try living near the ocean? You'll live longer. Well, that's what the stats tell us. It's a mix of a few things. The salt air lowers stress, the rhythm of waves supposedly regulates heart rate, and the view itself. I mean, anyone who says looking at the ocean stresses them out, lying. Scientists say it's the mind's natural response to water. Try it out. Stand on the beach long enough and your breathing slows, your mind clears, and all those worries just float away. But don't go floating too far. You don't want to get caught in a spider's web. And not every spider plays by the same rules. Yes, there's orb weavers who use their webs to catch insects, wolf spiders who hunt and stalk their prey. But then there's one spider that said, "Stuff tradition. I'm doing my own thing." Meet the ray spider, the Robin Hood of the spider world. Barely the size of a sesame seed, it anchors its web to a leaf, pulls the silk back like a bowstring, and just waits. When an insect passes by, it's gonna wish it hadn't. That thin strand of silk launches at 50 Gs of acceleration. For context, that's faster than a fighter jet. The web wraps up its prey and yanks it straight into the ray spider's grasp. For the insect, it's the last thing it remembers. But for you, well, you remember the first and last part, just not the middle. Sound confusing? Stick with me. Think about the last shopping list you memorized. You probably remember the first item and the last one, but that carton of eggs in the middle of the list. Yeah, the only thing scrambled is your brain. Psychologists call it the serial position effect. It's why you remember the start and end of a movie, but forget half of what happened in between. And you made it. I mean, you've probably already forgotten half of what I said, but yeah, we both know the start and end were the best bits. But anyway, I like facts. If you know any interesting ones, send them my way. And these boxes, they're pretty cool too. Why don't you try clicking one? But if not, it's been fun. Thanks for supporting the channel. You're one of the good ones.